Hello everybody, and thank you for coming back to the channel. So now what I'm going to do on this chapter, on this video, is I'm going to take apart the wing that it's just mounted, it's not glued. I'm going to do some fixes. I have to do also some holes for the cabling and things like that. Some fixes that I've marked on the spars to make sure that the ribs are as let's say as straight as possible. So I suppose it will take me a couple of times to take it apart and put it back together and to do the correct fixes that we have to do. So the one thing also, it's important that I have been labeling each of the ribs. They have a little code which is 9 right or 7 left or whatever, so that I know where to put the ribs back in, especially if they go right and left, because often the cuts are actually made specifically for that position. So I start with taking it apart. You can follow along with this one. It's kind of a tedious part of the process, but I want to get it as accurate as I possibly can, because that's going to then affect everything else, the performance, everything else. And I just noticed that I've broken one of the ribs, so I have to see if I make a new one or if I try to glue this one, but well, we'll see. They're quite delicate pieces, of course, as you see. So that's the wing unmounted now, dismounted, and I'll do the cuts. Some of the cuts I want to do, I don't know if you can see them here. I've marked here little circles. My plan is actually to make that circle big enough to push the electric motor through, so then I have a simpler life then when I'm cabling it. I don't need to do the soldering and the connecting of the cables later on. It's good to try to think ahead. I do it when I can, but of course it's not always possible. So I'll try to do that also now, and do the correction that I was marking before, and then it will be putting it back together again, and let's see if it fits better. Follow me. And here a short update. So I've managed to glue on already the main spar, which is the single largest piece that I have. I've glued it, and I was holding it down with these tweezers or whatever they are, these pegs. And I've also glued the sides, these 1mm thick balsa sides, which should give it also the sturdiness, as of course then the main spar will be holding most of the weight when it's in flight. I'm holding it together with some masking tape here so that it sticks well, and also some old weights. And then the next step will be to first of all let it stick, let it glue well, then maybe also close this. I've only glued part of it, so because then there's a bend, so I might glue then this other part, and then I'll start with the ribs, which is going to be a long process and a slow process. And I'm a bit worried about getting the control rod for the ailerons, this, let's see if you can see it, through each of the holes that I have in the inner ribs. I think it's up to rib number 5 that is going to need it. So let's see how it goes. I'll keep you posted. So as you can see, I've already managed to put in all the internal ribs on both wings. This, as I say, what I do, I take out each time, I take out the leading edge and then put it back in. I'm kind of very paranoid about the incidence of the wing, because that will have an impact on how it flies, right? Like if one wing is crooked upwards, then it might generate more lift and then turn. So I want to try to get it as accurate as possible. And the next step is going to be to put in these hinges on each side. So I'm going to glue them in. I've got to measure exactly where it's going to go. Let's see if you can see it like this. Glue them in, and then I'll probably put in some kind of a little screw or something somehow to fix them, because then once in place it's going to be very difficult to fix. So that's going to be then the next step. And once I have that in place, as you can see, then the hinge, there's a bit of the credit card that I have, and then an old staple that's the hinge. I'll have to fold it in also. And then once I have those put in, then I'll continue with the rest of the ribs. So, and after that, I'll glue the leading edge. That will give me the incidence, I hope, that the proper angle of incidence. and then after that it will be the trailing edge. So, and with that the wings will be almost complete except for the wingtips, but that will be a bit later on. So that's the status so far. So let me wrap up this chapter, this video, before it drags on for too long. Here now I've glued the whole structure, all the ribs, they've been glued on, which is good. It took a bit of a while. What I've also done, I've done the wingtips. I haven't glued them on yet, but I've cut them out, and it's 2.5mm balsa on the wingtips. I'll still sand them down and then glue them on also. And a little bit in parallel, what I was doing is trying to figure out about the engine seals, how to put them in and things like that, as it's a complete modification, and then there are some adaptations that I need to do. So we'll see how that goes. At the moment the biggest concern is the movement of the ailerons, because this is the hinge that moves, which is not a very big throw, which is a bit of my worry. So I'm not sure how I'll be able to change that. We'll see how it goes. And then the next big step will be to cut out the ailerons. So I'll probably cut out, I'm thinking of cutting out somewhere here, so to cutting it out down to here, and then have a rather large aileron on the outside part of the wing, so it has some effect. So anyhow, some progress. It's starting to get some shape, especially I think the wingtips did a lot to that, as the wing has a shape, and the fuselage is also starting to get some shape. Still electronics, still a lot of worries to go on, but I'll leave it there. So thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you next time.